There I am. Good evening and welcome to episode 19 of the Mouthwash Talk Show. And I'm telling you what, this is our pretty much the end of our three-part series. First part was conservative Gary Volvo on with guest host Micah Beckwith. And last week we had a wonderful conversation with Dana Black with the Indiana Democrats and the Stonewall Democrats. And she was just wonderful. And I'll tell you what, I didn't want to put any pressure on Donald Rainwater, but tonight I think he's going to do just fine. And you're going to learn a little bit about what it's like to be a libertarian. And I'm not going to disappoint you with the peeps on the streets. I think you're going to like that as well. And also we have a new commercial from the Chateau de Mars Hill Pharmaceuticals that I'm sure you're going to want to rush out and be able to buy this product as soon as the show's over. So just to do a little housekeeping here, I want to talk about how we've done such a good job being civil in our conversations, and it's been very much a quiet week. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our first guest and our only guest tonight. That's Donald Rainwater. So let's bring him on. And yes, Donald, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you so much for having me.
I've looked forward to this, and I know that not everybody knows what a libertarian is. Would you not agree?
Well, I think a lot of people have a misconception. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, hopefully we're going to get that straightened out tonight. And I'm sure that between you and Lucy, we'll be able to have a pretty good discernment on that. Well, Donald, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. One of the things that I'm curious about is why you got into politics, because you seem like a halfway normal person.
Well, looks are deceiving. First of all, I'm a lifelong Hoosier. I was born and raised in central Indiana, graduate of Warren Central High School on the east side of Indianapolis 40 years ago. Been a long time. Was in the United States Navy for 8 years. Got out, started working and raising a family and going through the normal iterations of adulthood. And over the years, my father was an auto worker for 41 years, and we went to church pretty much every time the doors opened when I was a kid. So I got a very balanced political indoctrination, both from the right and from the left. And as I got older, I realized that the problem wasn't necessarily what was going on the right or on the left, but the fact that government just seems to get in the way of everything we try to do. And the only people that really benefit from government is government themselves. Back in 2016, I was driving back and forth to work every day, hearing commercials on the radio about how the Indiana General Assembly wanted to raise the cigarette tax to encourage people to stop smoking and raise money for roads. And I'm no Albert Einstein, but it occurred to me that if people stop smoking, you're not going to raise any money. And if you're raising money, it's because people are still smoking. So saying that you're trying to do those two things simultaneously seems a little disingenuous to me. And I started looking back and I started thinking, you know what? Government lies to me on a daily basis. And I'm a little sick of it. And so I decided to get involved, looked around and I said to myself, I can't run as a Republican because they're lying to us about taxing us. I can't run as a Democrat because they don't lie to us about taxing us. They just tax us. And so I found the Libertarian Party was the party that was closest to what I felt I was looking for in the change that I wanted. So that's kind of how I got involved.
Yeah, well, and I tell you, it seems like a lot of folks get involved with that, and you try, and what I have found that we catch from both parties is the fact that if they don't discourage you, they try to destroy you. And after that, then they rinse and repeat. So, they may have welcoming, they may say, hey, we welcome everybody. We have a big tent. Everybody gets a seat to the table. But I don't see that happening. Is that sort of the same? Is that why possibly you could have picked the Libertarian, or you just said, hey, these two other parties just no bueno?
Well, I knew there was no way that I was going to get on a primary ballot as a Republican or a Democrat. They control their message, and they control who gets on their primary ballot and who gets their support really, really carefully. And if you want to participate in the process in an unfettered way, you either have to run as an independent or you have to run as as a candidate for a minor party. And what I was seeking was that camaraderie of like-minded people. I was looking for liberty-minded Hoosiers that I could say, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And that's what I found with the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, very good. And speaking of liberty, I could ask you questions all night, but that wouldn't be very fair to our panel because they're the question askers. And you've done a very good job of opening up here. So we're going to go ahead and go to the peeps on the streets. And I did notice that Tiffanie is having a little bit of trouble with the internet. So hopefully she'll get on here and we'll have a full panel when we get back. But if not, we'll have questions for you. So let's go ahead and roll that beautiful peeps on the streets footage. And we'll have the panel on when it completes. Hi, this is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, and I'm doing the segment Peeps on the Streets. It's gotten to be quite popular. So let's see what our people have to say today down in downtown Indianapolis. All right, do you think the government's too big, too small, or just right?
I think it's too small.
Too small. And now, do you think Americans have enough liberty?
Yeah.
All right, how would you define liberty?
Liberty as as in freedoms and stuff like that.
It's your definition, so whatever you want to call it.
I mean, pursuit of liberty and justice and all that stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, do you think the government is too big, too small, or just right?
I'm not sure.
Do you think Americans have enough liberty?
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, and how would you define liberty?
The freedom to do what you want, when you want to, how you want to.
Do you think government is too big? Yes, no, or I'm not sure?
Yes.
Yes? How about liberty? Do you think Americans have too much liberty?
No.
What would be your definition of liberty?
Gosh. I guess just freedom.
All right, sir, do you think government is too big, too small, or just right?
That's a tough one. At the municipal level, it's probably about right. The state level, probably about right. Federal tends to be too big.
All right. Do you think that Americans have enough liberty?
We've got about the right amount so far. It seems like our liberty's kind of being somewhat compressed, but right now, as long as we stay on the path we're on, I think we'll be okay.
All right, how would you define liberty?
Being able to do what you want as long as it doesn't injure another person or isn't just socially destructive to, just society at large.
Do you think the U.S. government is too big, too small, or just right?
I guess just right. I don't have an opinion on the size of it, really.
All right. Do you think Americans have enough liberty?
I think so.
And how would you define liberty in your opinion?
Liberty to me would be the freedom to be who you are without causing harm to others, I think, or extreme harm to others, maybe.
A little harm's okay, but...
Well, I mean, harm can be, a relative thing, I guess. We don't want to patrol hurting people's feelings because, that can be difficult, but maybe physical harm or, a detriment or, when it gets to legal things, but...
I appreciate it. Thank you. Do you think government is too big, too small, or just right?
I'd say a little bit too big. I don't feel like I really get the help I need here on the streets.
All right. And would you say Americans have enough liberty?
I'd say overall show, yeah, we're running in that direction, so I can't say we have too little.
All right. And my last question, this is a tough one. How would you define liberty?
I define liberty as the right to pursue freedom.
Sir, do you think government is too big, too small, or just right?
Too big in areas, just right in some, and too small in others.
Very good answer. And do you think Americans have enough liberty?
I do. I think we have more than a lot of people realize.
All right, last question. How would you define liberty?
It's a person's right to choose what they believe is right.
Well, that's a wrap for Peeps on the Streets this week. Now let's see what kind of questions our panelists have for Donald Rainwater. All right, well, I messed that up. Oh, that would have been perfect if I was a very good engineer. One note I want to say before we get started with the panelists and is the fact that there was 3 people today that were afraid to do an interview because of either their employer or they worked for the federal government. And that's one of the things we would like to do here on this show is we appreciate your opinion. We're not going to fire you for it. We're not going to shame you for it. We want to hear it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started tonight. And since Lucy is the libertarian, we're going to start it off easy for Donald because we don't want him to, get upset and, run away or anything. So Lucy, go ahead. Fire away that first question.
Yeah, Don's a tough old bird. I think he can handle the best of you. Don, I've never actually, to my knowledge, I don't remember hearing your story about, that seminal moment when you realized that you were a libertarian. Do you have a time when you're like, that's it, I'm a libertarian?
Well, I think when I actually was looking to get involved and I started researching on the internet and I got to the Libertarian Party website and I started reading the platform and, as you read down through it, there are some things you go, yeah. And by the time I got to the bottom, I was like, yeah, that's exactly who I am. I don't, and here again, I don't agree with every little nuance of every part of our platform or anybody else's. I think we all have nuances and uniquenesses in our personal understanding, and we grow over time. But I think when I was looking for, if you will, a political home, and I looked at several different minor parties, and looked at the Libertarian Party and said, you know what? That right there, I can feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
All right, Tiffanie, hopefully it looks like your internet's working pretty good there. So go ahead, and if you've got a question for Donald,
Yeah. Mr. Rainwater, thank you so much for being on tonight. Number 2, I want to thank you for your service in the Navy. I, too, am an Air Force veteran. So I greatly appreciate your service. Thank you. Thank you. And we're just coming off of Flag Day on Monday.
Absolutely.
And Saturday was Female Veterans Day. So hug a female veteran if you know one, or give her money. Either works. So my question for you is, tell me how your military service has shaped your political views.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, one of the first things that I refer back to when you ask that question is the amount of education and growth that I received. By the time I was 23 years old, I had visited 19 different countries. And I had seen a lot of poverty, and I had seen the way that some countries responded to us coming on shore versus how other countries responded, and was able to start developing kind of an understanding at a what I consider to be a young age of how our nation's interactions globally affect other countries and other peoples. and how it informs how they respond to us. And so I think that a lot of my interactions during that 4 years of sea duty had a lot to do with how I developed my understanding and really my separation of members of the military and national defense from necessarily how our government has misused our military in certain periods of time.
Very good. Ed, before we get to you, I want to put this up from one of our viewers because our viewers are important. As you know, we'd like to encourage them to ask questions, but here's one for Donald, and Ed, you're going to like this one too because it's about the Republicans. So what about the Republican platforms makes you uncomfortable, or doesn't it fit as well as the libertarian platform?
Well, so, Alicia, that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that. And I'll tell you, it's not the platform that I'm uncomfortable with. It's the fact that people campaign under one set of promises and then they govern differently. You see, I don't have a problem necessarily with the spirit of most of the Republican platform. It's the fact that they don't hold to it, that they say one thing and they do another. They say they're for limited government, but they're constantly expanding the size and scope of government. They say they're for lower taxes, yet they want to raise taxes many times in the most obscure ways possible so that you're not aware of it. So in many, many cases, my problem isn't necessarily with the platform, it's with the implementation.
It's sort of like one of those things. It's a great system till you add people.
And you know, in a lot of ways, John, I think that's very much correct. I also think that the old cliche that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely is very relevant in the state of Indiana today.
Yeah, it does seem like it's a one-way street. Well, Ed, I'm sure you would probably definitely agree with that. So what do you got for us in the way of a question?
First of all, as a fellow Navy veteran, I just want to know if Don was thinking the same thing I was as John was out there asking people about liberty, because my idea of liberty is way different, and it goes back to the Navy days, but being able to get off the ship.
Absolutely. I
had a lot of different thoughts.
I get 2 days like a sailor. I get 2 days out of 3, Ed. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and part of, you know, as I was watching that, part of it was I'm listening to people there when you ask them the size of government, and I agree with you on a lot of points, but I also hear a lot of people there of they pick and choose on which part of government's too big, which part's too small, and so, you know, I hear a lot of the libertarians. I'm not necessarily saying you, but just tear it all down. And so I just like to get a better perspective for you, because I know, especially like at the local level, I know a lot of people do appreciate some of their, you know, local government.
Certainly. And I will say that I tell people all the time that every level of government, whether it's your municipal government, county, state, federal, I believe that they have all overgrown their constitutional limits. And what I always do, Ed, is I always refer back to the document that I believe was designed by the founders to limit government, not limit citizens, but limit government. Yep. And when I look at government's responsibilities based on whether it be the U.S. Constitution or the state of Indiana Constitution, I look at that document, and anytime I see government getting involved in things that I can't comfortably, literally say, this document says they're supposed to do that, I consider that an overreach of government. And so I'm constantly of the attitude, and this may be an extreme thought to many, but I believe that the only thing government truly does well is screw things up. And so anytime that I want, for example, to do something for my fellow man, I want government as far away from me as I can get them. Because I want to be able, if I want to go out and feed the homeless or help the homeless find shelter, I don't need the government coming along and telling me you can't feed them, you don't have a permit. I don't need the government telling a church you can't let those people sleep in your basement because you don't have a permit. And those things infuriate me, because the reality is that there are human beings who want to do humanitarian things, and government restricts them from doing it, because government, in order to justify itself, has to create dependency. And that frustrates the daylights out of me. So I will tell you right now, I believe that liberty plus humanitarian equals libertarian. I want to help people, and the only way I can do it without having restrictions is to limit government, because government limits charity.
That's a good, you just did a good definition of libertarian, because, and that's what I try to do with the peeps on the streets questions, is to highlight liberty, and it seems to be, it's out there. So I'm going to put up this question from Spiro before we get, I think, Tiffanie, I'm going to have you go next, and I'll give you a little segue to that, because Don mentioned the homelessness issue. So we're going to go to that next, but let's get this question up by Spiro, and it's going to cover up Tiffanie. I apologize for that. I appreciate your position on the parties. However, how do you overcome the stigma and hurdles of being associated with a minor party? Can you really be effective?
Well, not to be smart aleck, Spiro, because you're asking a legitimate question, but I'm going to answer it by saying I will defer to Abraham Lincoln when it comes to, can I be effective as a member of a third party? Because if you go back and you look at history, Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party in 1860 were the third party. And I believe that when citizens become disenfranchised and dissatisfied with the people that are representing them, or representing them, if you will, then they start looking for something that they're not getting. And if they can find something that is sound and solid and sincere, no alliteration intended, then I believe that they will gravitate toward that, and that you will see a shift or a recalibration in the political landscape, whether it be in Indiana or across the United States. And I think that we have seen that over the last, I would say, 12 to 16 years, that the American voter has started to become very dissatisfied and very disenfranchised with the status quo establishment political elites who basically turned our democratic republic into an oligarchy. We are governed by the rich, and it doesn't matter whether it's rich on the left or rich on the right. We are, in many cases, the same guy, the same daddy Warbucks is shoveling money to both sides. And it's people are starting to wake up. And I believe that as that awakening occurs, then the two old parties will either get their stuff together, or new parties will rise up. And if you study history, I believe the original two-party system were the Whigs and the Tories. And while I need a Whig, the Whigs aren't around anymore, and neither are the Tories. And 50 years to 100 years from now, there may be no Republican or Democrat party either. We don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So, Tiffanie, what I wanted to talk to you about was the homeless thing, because I know that you are involved somewhat with the homeless here in Indianapolis, and Don had mentioned something about having a permit for that to do that, and that was actually something that the city county had proposed, that we're going to limit people from going out and helping people. So not only is the government not helping them, but they're going to stop you from helping them. So would you have any question along that lines that to ask, or maybe just a comment?
Sure. So certainly. So I'm part of a VFW post, and we feed the homeless one day a month down on Luger Plaza. And that was very concerning to us. But happily, things worked out and we're able to feed people without a permit. But I was reading some of your comments online about being pro-life versus pro-choice. And I really liked what your thoughts were. And so you talked about being pro-life, pro-choice, but being pro-every life. So, and I think that this is kind of a way to bring this all together. What are the top 3 things that we should do in Indiana to be pro-every life?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to understand that if you're going to follow the literal intent of the First Amendment, you have to understand that religious freedom doesn't just include your religion, it includes everybody's. And therefore, you have to respect other people's religious beliefs in their own life. And so where I may personally agree or disagree with, for example, assisted suicide, there are many people who say, well, that's wrong, that's a sin, we need laws against that. Well, that's based on your religious beliefs. There are other people who have different religious beliefs who may not necessarily agree with that. And creating laws based on religious belief over what is always, and Alicia, you're right, all laws should apply to each life equally. And we should always remember that I have a choice to determine my life's destiny. And therefore, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about, let's take, for example, capital punishment. Growing up, I just accepted that that was an acceptable thing. But at some point in my life, I stepped back and I said, from a Christian perspective, I remember in the Bible, it said that Jesus came upon a group of people getting ready to stone somebody. And he said, okay, whichever one of you is without sin, go ahead and cast the first stone. Yeah. And so there are, there are all these things that, we want to inform legal opinion or laws based on our religious beliefs. And I believe the most important thing that we have to do is we have to remember that in order for me to protect my religious beliefs, I have to protect yours, even if I don't agree with them. And that goes for whether it be abortion or euthanasia or assisted suicide or capital punishment. These are things that we really have to step back and have a different measure of why we have that law than, well, that's what I believe religiously we should have.
Yeah, I think
that maybe is a bigger umbrella than what you were specifically asking, but I think that all of those different facets need to be held to that measure.
And I think that was very well articulated there. And I think we all could do better by looking through someone else's lens instead of always looking through our own. So Lucy, you've been very well behaved tonight. So I'm going to let you ask a question. I can see the wheels turning back there, so I don't even have to set you up with anything. So
Yeah,
go
John,
right on
You're
ahead.
so kind.
Trust me, Lucy and I have sat at tables many a time, and she has
Yes.
beaten me to a bloody pulp.
Oh my goodness. You're the only person I know that can out-talk me. So I was just going to shut up and give you the space. You know, I'm just going to put this out there because I know that Don agrees with me. I'm a pro-life libertarian, and I believe that in order to protect all of society, that you do so best by first protecting the most helpless and individual member of society, which right now we've got two classes. One is the unborn, obviously, and then the other are people that are older or disabled and are in danger of being euthanized, as they are in a lot of countries. And so, Don, you know, I'm just curious where you are on that spectrum, and how do you explain to somebody that you're pro-life and a libertarian, since we have this pro-choice umbrella that kind of follows us around?
Let me and first of all, if you read if you go to lp.org, the Libertarian Party national platform, it doesn't say that we're pro-choice or pro-life. It says that there are, I believe the wording is good faith positions on both sides.
Yeah.
And many people, many libertarians will say, you know, you can have whatever opinion, government should stay out of it.
That's exactly the first part, obviously.
Right. And here's the problem that I have with that generalization. We as libertarians, the foundation of what we believe liberty entails, and I think during the questions on the street, this was alluded to several times. Liberty is my right to pursue my destiny as long as it does not harm someone else or their property. And the non-aggression principle informs just about every facet of libertarianism, or at least it should. And from my perspective, as a pro-life libertarian, like you said, you have to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And therefore, I consider being pro-life as protecting the life of someone who cannot protect themselves. An unborn child cannot exercise their Second Amendment right. So therefore, we have to, that is a legitimate function of government, to make sure that I don't hurt you, you don't hurt me, and if we do, that there's a penalty for that.
Right.
Yep. Well, I find it a little bit ironic that the government supports abortion because that's another taxpayer that they don't have. So I think that would be a deterrent, number one there for the government folks. But Ed, you're next in line here, and then I have a question for both Donald and Lucy since they're libertarians. I got a question coming for them. So go ahead, Ed.
I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but I still want to hear anyway. You know, you touched on it before. I mean, we have corporations here, not just in Indiana, all around the country, but specifically here in Indiana, you have corporations that you have 5 guys lobbying the right, 5 guys lobbying the left. I mean, you know, one corporation they aren't lobbying one side, they're lobbying both. How does the small party, and not even just the libertarians, but how do the small parties break through on that? Because, I mean, the media and so much of this is media exposure and everything else. How do they break through and get the message out?
Well, you know, and Ed, that is the $1 million question. And the reality is and for those of you who may not know, I ran as the Libertarian candidate for governor in Indiana in 2020. And normally, the Libertarian gubernatorial candidate gets 3 or 4%. Because of some excellent campaigning that Eric Holcomb did for me, I was able to get about 12%. And that goes back to what I said before about voters becoming disenfranchised, becoming disillusioned, and saying, I've had enough. I'm looking for something that fits me better than what I've been voting for. And so we were able to have a lot of success because of the circumstances. But I'm not willing to let that sleeping dog go back to sleep. So I have created, I founded a political action committee, a PAC called Liberty is Essential. And I am continuing to do what I can to continue to get my message out, to continue to rally liberty-minded people, regardless of political party, around the idea that it is time for change. And one of the things that my wife is really sick of hearing me say, she's heard it for over a decade now, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Yep.
And if you're sick of what you're getting, you need to get sick of what you're doing. And so I am really, really pushing the message that if you don't like what the Indiana General Assembly has laid out, vote them out. We got to get rid of them. And, you know, I posted something yesterday in my new Liberty is Essential social network platform about the fact that, you know, our country was built on individualism. And we live in a day right now where we're very hyper focused on trying to stop collectivism, but we don't realize that in Indiana, the collective in power is the Indiana Republican Party. And if we want our individualism back, we've got to take some of the power away from the collective so that we can have our individual rights and that we can protect them and preserve them. And the only way to do that is to create a more limited government. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we don't have a supermajority that can do whatever it wants under no fear of reprisal from the citizenry.
And that's a little bit like we have at this point. So I'll tell you what, Donald, you're doing a good job against this panel. They came with some questions tonight, and I believe Tiffany's got one. But before that, I want to get to my question, and I sort of asked Lucy about this. Okay, so there's this dude in the Libertarian Party named Vermin Supreme, and he runs for president about every so many years or whatever. And I don't really know what I'm sort of saying this jokingly, but I know others have probably heard of him. But he wears a boot on his head, and I wish I had a picture. But do you know? I mean, this is Indiana Libertarian, but this is more of a national thing. I believe he's from Maine, possibly. Can one of you two, Lucy or Donald?
Lucy, isn't he from Vermont? Is it Vermont that he's from?
Yeah, I know it's Northeast, but I thought it was Vermont. The thing about Vermin that is so cool is that if we would just elect him president, he would give free toothbrushes and free ponies to every citizen. With a promise like that, I don't know how anybody can say no.
Yeah,
and you know, the beautiful thing about what Lucy just said is that, you know, all of us have to find our voice. And we have to find our method to, you know, as Ed said, how do you get the message out? Now, there are people like me who, you know, I have my style. Lucy has a different style than I have. Vermin Supreme has decided that really bringing into bright focus the ludicrous, ridiculous nature of politics today and the outlandish guarantees that politicians make and just how unbelievable some of these folks are. And he's bringing that out through sarcastic humor, to be honest with you. And in a lot of places, it's very effective. Now, I also, I've told people for years, every political party has their vermin supreme. I won't name names, but there are people on the right and people on the left that their respective bases are more than a little embarrassed by sometimes. And ours just seems to be doing it on purpose, see? At least he's intentionally being outrageous.
So yeah, there is a difference that way. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out. I don't want to have you come on here and have a bunch of softball questions, which none have been so far, but I just thought I would throw that in there. But Tiffany has a question for you. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, and so I really do appreciate hearing your thoughts, and I just really appreciate it. It's just nice to hear how libertarians think. It's interesting. It seems like you're just right down between, middle of the road between both the Democratic and the Republican Party, and it's nice to hear your thoughts. So right now, I live in Fishers, and we have a lot of talk about. About Fishers. Well, I've been here for 14 years. When I moved here, there were reasons I moved to Fishers. It's, nice, safe environment, great for my daughter, just really great schools. But right now there's a lot of debate going on and controversy about SEL, social emotional learning, and the teaching of critical race theory in our schools. And just really interested to understand what your thoughts are as a libertarian on the teaching of that in our curriculum, because I read something that you had written, and it said, my way or the highway viewpoints are the beginning of oppression that will end in either fascism or communism. So I'm interested in just kind of understanding what your thoughts are on how this curriculum will impact our nation.
Well, I'm going to take, and actually I'm going to kind of step just a step above the specific question, because I think there's a bigger point that we need to make. And people who know me and talk to me a lot know that I try very hard public education, because it's not public education, it's government education. And I believe that first of all, I graduated high school in 1981. The Federal Department of Education didn't come into being until 1978. And so I have a different educational experience than all of the children that came after me over the last 40 years.
Yep.
Because there's been more regulation. I am a huge opponent to the idea that the federal government gets to tell the state what to do by dangling money it took from the citizens of that state and saying, we'll give some of this back to you, but you've got to teach your kids the way we tell you. I'm also not a big fan of the fact that 150 people, who very few of them are educators, if any of them, sit down at the septic tank at 200 West Washington Street and create laws that dictate educational philosophy in the state of Indiana. I believe that education, first of all, I believe that educational choice by parents is a natural right. God did not have us born by the state. We were born by two parents, and the parents should have the authority to decide how their kids are educated. And when I see groups of people suddenly going to school board meetings, I first say, where have you been the entire time your kid was in school? Why are you just now worried about the crap that's being pushed down their throats? Because unfortunately, 90% of what is done in the school, the government schools today, is not education, it's social engineering. And it's government making sure that the next generation is properly prepared to shell out more money and keep their mouths shut about it. And that bothers me. So I'm a big proponent of school choice. And I'll tell you, if you don't like what the government school is teaching your kid, get your kid out of the government school. And I understand there are a lot of people who say, but I can't afford it. And what you have to do is you have to decide what's the most important thing. And if your child being educated in the way that you want them educated is your top priority, I guarantee you'll figure out how to get it done. And that's how we change public education. Because the students who are being harmed the most by poor education standards are the ones who need us to disrupt the system the most. The people in, the people in poverty who are dependent upon the government for their child's education need the rest of us to take action so that they can get a better quality education. Because here again, I believe the government does nothing but create dependency. And so if they can keep you dependent, why would they give you something better? So I hope that I know that here again, I like Lucy said, you know, all you have to do is ask me a yes or no question, and I'll give you a 30-minute response.
It's only an hour show, so
that's right. Well, I apologize, but if you put a soapbox on the ground, I will jump onto it.
No, yeah,
I loved your answer because it speaks to school choice, and also it speaks to that responsibility of parents. It's like if it's a priority to have something other than that type of education, you'll make it happen. And we're seeing people making those sacrifices and, you know, relooking at budgets and home expenses to make sure that their kids are getting the kind of education that they want. And then the other part of it is, you know, we are seeing a lot of action at the school board level, lots of interest, and people exercising some of their rights and their liberty, as you will, to fix things at that level. So I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of stuff going on right now. I do feel an energy that is going with a lot of different things, either whether it's forceful vaccination or if it's, you know, the school situation, or there's just a lot of things going on right now that if you're not upset about one thing, yeah, I'm surprised. It seems like there's very few people that are happy. Ed, do you have we're going to do one more last round. If you have a question, we're getting a little closer to the end here. So let's start winding it down. And so we'll start with Ed, then go to Lucy, and then Tiffany. If you have another question, you sure can ask it. And Donald, speed it up a little bit. We don't have the 30 minutes.
Sir.
We've got a couple minutes on each one, okay? I'm trying to be a good host here, okay?
Answers. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
So one of the most amazing things I found when I was running, I talked to some researchers from IU, and they're actually paying money from here to have studies conducted in Norway and India on marijuana. And they're not just studying it for recreational use. This is cancer research. And so could you touch on me? Because for the life of me, I can't understand why we are so opposed to it in this state. And
me neither.
Yeah, can you just touch on that?
I have a theory. I know, John, you're going to do tin hat, stuff here in a minute. So I'll just throw mine out there right now. My conspiracy theory is that the Indiana Republican Party gets too much money from Eli Lilly, and Eli Lilly would be economically damaged if they're not set to lead the way in medical marijuana, and therefore until they can get where they want to be, to where they can make the appropriate amount of profit to make up for what they'll lose in the addictive, dangerous narcotic market that they are already entrenched in.
Yep.
They're not going to let people like Eric Holcomb or the Speaker of the House or the Senate Pro Tem push forward any kind of cannabis reform legislation. Now that's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's going to count, Donald. That's not going to count because it's probably closer to true than not. So you can come up with another one for the segment.
Agrees with me, so
yeah. So Lucy, go ahead. What do you have?
As a former Lilly employee, they do not have any narcotics. So sorry.
They got some other stuff that they want to, keep. Like look how happy cannabis makes people, and Lilly has Prozac, right? So, that's definitely an alternative. But I would like to point out that, cannabis has only been around for thousands of years. We only have an endocannabinoid system making cannabinoids in our body. And yet, every American must take the COVID vaccine that has no product liability and, has inadequate safety studies. Gosh, I want to go with my conspiracy theory, but it's so hard to wait.
You gotta wait. You gotta wait.
I gotta wait. Yeah, I gotta wait. But I'll piggyback there on that cannabis thing. Don, you've been around for a while. What do you think we as individual citizens should be doing on the cannabis issue to bring more freedom to Indiana?
Well, here again, if you believe, as I do, that everyone has the right to make that choice for themselves, and that here again, cannabis, whether it be for medical or recreational purposes, there's no indication that it's any better or worse than opioids or alcohol or tobacco, or for that matter, caffeine. You got to vote the people out who are blocking something that you believe in. We've got to stop voting for people who aren't representing us. And if you believe something is important, constitutional carry, I'm a big constitutional carry guy. Okay. And I thought we were finally going to see that happen. And then, of course, the state Senate just pulled the rug out from sorry, Lucy. Lucy pulled the football out from us, exactly. And there we go. And it doesn't matter whether it's cannabis or education or constitutional carry. It doesn't matter and it doesn't matter if you're on the right, on the left, if you're libertarian, if you don't have a political preference. It makes no difference. What does matter is if the people who are in there don't represent you, vote against them. Find somebody who does represent you and vote for them. Don't vote for a political oligarchy. This isn't, we don't have to vote for the Communist Party. We don't have to vote for this party or that party. Vote for people. Yeah. Vote for a citizen servant who will represent you and what you believe in and protect your liberties, your individual rights. That's how we change things. Yep. Sorry, I jumped on the soapbox again, John. I apologize.
That's okay. I think I timed it pretty well. So we got Tiffany's the last batter for tonight, and I just want to say, panel, you guys are quite impressive here. You're falling right in. I see you got a microphone there, and you got your green screen up. And Tiffany, your internet's very good tonight. And Lucy, as usual, it looks like you got a mafia hit going in the background. But one of these days, you'll get a green screen. It's okay. So, Tiffany, go ahead and wind it up here, and then we'll get ready for the real conspiracy theories.
Sure. So I appreciate your views on cannabis. I have a friend in Fortville who is he is a hemp farmer, and he works with Purdue, and they crossbreed streams, and so it's high cannabis, little to no THC, very legal. And for any of our viewers who are wanting to know more about medical marijuana benefits, hemp is legal. It will engage the cannabinoid systems. There's tablets, there's droplets, there's coffees. There are all kinds of ways to get the benefits of cannabinoids without the THC. In my talk with Republicans in the state, they are elected. The voters in Indiana have spoken, and I just think that we're not ready for medical marijuana right now. The former drug rep in me sees a lot of benefit in it, and I hope things will change because there are some benefits there. But for people who are looking to use a cannabinoid system to decrease pain, decrease anxiety, there are legal ways to get it done. With that said, just wanted to get a couple of your thoughts on the healthcare system. And what are some things that you'd like to see? Just an easy question about improving the healthcare system in the nation.
Let me throw
Please
this out
answer
here real quick.
We'll pick that up in hour 2.
30 to 60 seconds. 30 to 60.
No, bless your heart, Tiffany. Thank you so much for asking that, because one of the things that I have been telling people consistently, especially lately, is that, it's actually 2 issues. There's healthcare and there's how we pay for it. And first of all, we need to get government out of the relationship between a patient and a doctor. Now, government's role is to protect us from force or fraud by someone else. So there is a limited role in regulation, don't get me wrong, but there are too many people who are not allowed to get the care that their doctor thinks they should have, because whether it be government insurance or government regulation of insurance has allowed for a third party to come in and say, no, we're paying for this. You can't do this surgery, or you can't give them this experimental treatment, or whatever the case may be, because we have a financial stake here. And that's wrong. We need to reduce regulations in order to create innovative new possibilities in the marketplace. There are lots of ways for people to pay for their health care in an affordable way without having to pay for an insurance policy where the premium is $650 a month for a family and the deductible is $10,000, and you pay all that money in before you ever get any benefit of the insurance. But the insurance company is always right there telling the doctor, no, you got to follow our rules.
Yep.
That's got to change. And so I tell people all the time, when people say, oh, you have a right to health care, and other people go, no, there's no right to health care. Sure, you have a right to health care. You have a right to choose what health care you want to pursue and purchase, and you have a right to decide between you and your provider how you're going to pay for it.
Yep.
Very good, very good. Well, Donald, I'm going to tell you what, you are well versed in these subjects, and your passion is great. And a lot of times when somebody runs for an office and they lose, they quit. But I don't hear any quit in you. So we do appreciate you for coming on. Are you going to stick around for the conspiracy theory? Are you
Absolutely.
All right, we got a full house on that. Ed, do you even have one tonight? Do you have a conspiracy? I mean,
Absolutely.
I hope. Okay, you're gonna love mine. It's a doozy. So we'll go ahead and get that set up here. We'll go ahead and play our little intro. And viewers, I thank you for your questions. You've been very good in the chat tonight. So let's go ahead and go to the intro for that and get your tinfoil hats on, everybody.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out, and let's see what's going on this week.
All right, let me get down here where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. All right. Let's see. It's that time of the show where we have, hold on a second, we got a sponsor for this. We have a new product out that by Chateau de Mars Hill Pharmaceuticals. Let's go ahead and play this commercial before we get started, and then we're going to start with Lucy tonight. Then we'll do Ed, Tiffany, and then Donald, and I'm going to back clean up. So let's listen to this promotion here. Now, again, they're not paying anything for this commercial, so you just get okay. Hi, this is John Schmitz for Chateau de Mars Hill Pharmaceuticals, and I have a brand new medicine for you that's come out, and it's for Facebook users only. As a psychologist, we don't hear enough about mental health, and this medicine here is guaranteed to help you with your mental health on Facebook. And the name of the medicine is Mind Your Own Business, and this thing helps you. You just take one tablet daily, and it keeps you from making stupid comments on Facebook. So rush out today to your local drugstore and get you some Mind Your Own Business.
Love it.
I apologize for that. Just try to keep it light. And look, Lucy lost her hat on that one. So go ahead, Lucy. Let's go with your conspirafact theory tonight. And I don't know where your buddy Paul Jensen is tonight, but I'm sure he's probably flipping his wig because of your conspiracy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got one that's a real doozy tonight. And it's very implausible, which is unlike most of my conspiracy fact investigative journalists. I believe that, let me put forth the conspiracy theory that Eric Holcomb is actually a super libertarian, individual, liberty-loving man who decided that the best way to serve Hoosiers was to be so egregiously horrible that Don is clearly the best candidate. So the only reason that Eric acted so horrible was to convince Hoosiers to do the right thing and vote for Don Rainwater. And he's continuing to act horrible, hoping to reel Donald in for another run. That's my conspiracy theory.
That wasn't a shameless plug. Okay. That was almost as bad as Mind Your Own Business medicine.
Almost.
So, Ed, what do you got for us tonight? I see you smiling like you might actually have a good one.
Actually, you already kind of previewed it. This week, I'm going with sending my shout out to Cameron Kinley, the Naval Academy graduate who got denied his opportunity to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As many of the people have talked about on sports radio this week, there was 3 people from the Air Force Academy who were allowed to defer their assignment until after their contract. There was also another one from the Army that was allowed to. He was the only one this year not given the waiver, and my conspiracy theory comes in the fact that he was going to play with Tom Brady, who Tom Brady has notoriously been out and open about the fact that he was golfing buddies with Donald Trump, and there was no way this administration was going to let one of their guys go sign to help out Donald Trump's golfing buddy. That's my conspiracy theory.
That's good.
You are really getting the hang of this deal. I mean, you really are. So Tiffanie, top that one.
Wow, Ed, the veteran in me is screaming because when we sign up for that stuff, we know we take the chance of having to do what the government wants us to do. So inside I'm screaming, but I just want to let you know that I spent time with my boyfriend this weekend, and it was just a quiet weekend, and we did a little bit of fishing.
Now, I know that's true because you'd have a pond behind your house. So, oh my, wow!
And we didn't catch anything. We didn't catch.
No,
anything.
you didn't catch anything. No. I can't wait to see what gets built on top of this next week. All right, Mr. Rainwater, what do you have for us?
Well, I have a Nostradamus style prediction that in 2024, the Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate seat will be Eric Holcomb, and the Republican nominee for governor will be one Mike Braun.
Oh, okay. So that's like, that gives me something to think about. Well, mine's a little bit related to Ed because great minds think alike. Mine's sports related, and this one is concerning Tiger Woods. Now, a lot of people have heard that Tiger Woods a couple months ago had a pretty bad car accident, and they came out and they said that it was speed that was the factor, but hey, there's more. Hold on. He's actually working undercover trying to bring down an international sex trafficking prostitution ring, and he was actually chasing somebody when he lost control of his car, and that's how it goes. and they can't really talk about it because he's still undercover. I mean, who would ever suspect Tiger Woods for, being, ratting somebody else out? So that's my conspiracy theory. And I don't know. You make the call if that's good, bad, or otherwise. Okay. As usual, I need to put the banner up for this on, let's see, the conspiracy. Oh, wait. Let's put this banner up there across. Yeah, they're for entertainment purposes only. All right. Well, Donald, I thank you for coming in. This has been another wonderful show. We might actually make it to episode 20 next week. And I'm really liking how our panel is settling in here and, doing some research and actually acting like they're getting paid. So it's really nice. Our guest next week is Greg Merriweather. We're going to talk about probably some local city politics and maybe some race relationships. Maybe I might even ask him what it's like to be a black man in Indianapolis, and we'll see where that goes. And it'll be an interesting evening. So we thank you for tuning in tonight, and we shall see you next week.